Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello again.
And hello again for the second time, because there's a second piece of news that is worth covering. Now, it seems like the new Xboxes are dropping at E3 this year.
Ooh.
What are your immediate thoughts, good sir?
Well, I'm right.
You were right.
No, I'm not going to jump into my own ego, but that does make a lot of sense. They soft announced it last year when they teased that they were working on something else. We've heard a lot about Xbox Scarlet and potentially 2 other Xboxes for a while now. It seems like they're just eager to restart a new sort of not console war. That's bad.
They
want to get away from the Xbox One.
Crackdown 3
exactly.
and everything. It's
exactly.
This generation, I mean, if you look behind the scenes, if you look away from the exclusives, Microsoft have made some great moves towards a potential, nailing the next generation. I love the little tiny things that they've got, like the controller customization and their work with streaming services and Xbox Game Pass and backwards compatibility. There's a lot of infrastructural things that are very, very promising. But yeah, this news comes from French website Jeux Vidéo, who reported that we'll be getting both new Xbox systems at E3. Only debut, they're not released until 2020.
That makes sense.
But it's worth breaking down what these are. So the 2 different ones, we've covered them on the podcast before, are they're codenamed Xbox Lockhart and Xbox Anaconda, which hilarious for the latter, because you can't not mention Nicki Minaj. But for the Lockhart one, that is meant to be a diskless streaming system. So that's them fully embracing the xCloud streaming stuff that Phil Spencer's mentioned a couple of times before, and seems to be Xbox fully embracing the fact that they want to move into Netflix territory. They want to be thought of as the Netflix for games, which has been tried a few times across this last generation. Like obviously, you've had like PlayStation Now and the Game Pass and different versions of streaming games in that, for my money, never worked. It was always that thing where there was always a hitch, and if you're playing something like Ninja Gaiden or something that's timing intensive, never felt right. So if you're going to do this, do a diskless system, assumedly that thing will come with a massive hard drive. It has to. Yeah. It has to be a couple of terabytes or something. So you can download a few games, and then if they've mastered the tech that this generation got wrong, you would download a game, it might load like the first quarter of it, download the first quarter of it, and you can just play as the rest downloads in. I would hope that's the case.
It has to be, I think.
Yeah,
if you want it to succeed, it's got to be
absolutely
spot on.
Because the amount of games, I mean, that was one of the earliest generation promises, was that you would go home, you'd put a disc in, and then, you would download something, it would immediately install. You could play a bit of it, and the rest of it would kick in later. And the amount of games that it says ready to play, and then you open it and it says still installing, and I'm like, oh, you just lied to my face. I don't like it at all.
The last time that happened was a few weeks ago when I was playing Metro. Before it came out. To be honest. And I downloaded it and I was so ready to jump in, and I'd finished the tutorial and it was like, ooh, actually, it's still installing and you can't get past this. So they're technically not lying, but also it's not as good as it's supposed to be, is it? Yeah.
That's the loophole. So yeah, I would assume that in this case, if this is all true and we're getting a diskless Xbox system is quite hard to say. Then I would assume it would have to have a massive hard drive. So that's SKU 1. SKU 2 is the Xbox Anaconda. Actually, another thing worth mentioning for the Lockhart is that it's the more affordable Xbox, according to the report. It'll be the one that sort of measures up with the Xbox One S. It's your entry-level system. Yeah. Because going forward, they're still going to have what we've had this gen, where you've got the base one and the deluxe model. So the deluxe one is the Anaconda. That's meant to be their Xbox One X. That's their big premium 4K, Josh buys it, no one else's style model. Because he's always telling me to buy the thing, and I bought the PS4 Pro, and then is it worth it? I don't know.
Yes.
But maybe it is. But the Anaconda is their big play for the 4K market, maybe the 8K market, whatever. Like, going forward in the next few years, we're going to see 8K resolutions. And some stuff, if you read into the likes of the things that Stan Lee was filming with Kevin Smith just before he passed away, he actually filmed a video in, I think it was 12K,
ridiculous,
knowing that they couldn't watch it back, but they had enough technology to film it, so visual fidelity is just going to go off the rails going forward. But yeah, what do you think about the idea of launching with 2 systems?
It's interesting. It hasn't really been done before. I don't think, not to this extent, when you've got such a kind of affordable model and then your big beefy system. They seem very clearly for 2 different markets as well. Like obviously the more casual kind of family oriented, well, not family oriented, but the people who want to stream and want to download games that way. More convenience, I guess, is the word. You're not really worried about the performance. You're not really worried about the fidelity of the games. You just want to play them, which I think is a good option to have.
It's true. I have a question for you. When was the last time you went to a physical game store? And bought a game, not a shirt. That Bama shirts from the game stores.
I actually got Kingdom Hearts 3 from a game store, but it's not often.
Okay, yeah, it's not very often. I think that physical retail, I'm not going to say dying, but I think that it is obviously demonstrably less. I tend to get the vast majority of my stuff digital, whether that's just through early access codes that we're lucky enough to get, or just through just sheer accessibility. If something's available, I just want to download it. And I kind of wonder whether this is them making a step towards that, which is what they tried to do last gen, when the Xbox had all the DRM stuff, license holding, all that kind of thing. Maybe this is just a better way to do that.
This is the big difference between what they're doing now and what they did back in 2013 or whatever. Is back then everything came out of left field.
Yes.
It seemed like a huge surprise. Not only was the price and the messaging all wrong, but everything that we're trying to do seemed sort of unprecedented at the time. And you can look back and say that maybe they were kind of right to dip the toes into those practices. But back then, it was such a huge surprise and nobody wanted it. Whereas at least now, they're sort of setting the groundwork down with things like, Games Pass and expanding out to the Nintendo Switch and other platforms. There is a kind of precedent here to go into the next generation as a completely different Microsoft had a completely different approach to how they even deliver consoles and their exclusives and their games.
Yeah, well, it's worth the Switch thing is massive because it's worth noting like how much are Microsoft getting out of the games industry in terms of what an Xbox is as a console. Because this generation they moved on to saying that all their exclusives are available on PC as well as the Xbox, and then now the latest rumor is that I think it's confirmed that they're bringing Xbox Live to Switch. But assumedly that would be like some sort of like you can log into your profile, you can view friends, you can view achievements maybe. But then another rumor thing was that Cuphead and I think there was another game.
It's like Ori and
the Blind Forest were going to be playable on Switch. And it's like, for me, I'm like, well, why would you dilute your exclusive pool? Why would you make them available everywhere other than the base system?
Right.
And I think that's just, maybe there's some business side of it that I'm just not seeing. And like, I don't know, maybe that's their way of branching into Xbox as the Netflix, as the, nebulous, all-accessible brand, rather than Xbox the console. And maybe that's the only direction that they can go, being that they just can't compete with the Switch and the PS4.
Well, I think you kind of touched upon it then when you mentioned that their exclusives haven't necessarily been exclusive. They've often, almost always come to the PC as well. And I know Sony has started to do that with their second-party titles like Street Fighter 5. But mostly when Sony releases a first-party game, it's just on the PlayStation 4, whatever console they happen to have. Whereas Microsoft have always been more open to it. And I think this is just kind of a natural extension about that. For the past generation, we've just had Microsoft and Sony just thrown. It's just walking into like a brick wall like this, just whacking, and it's not really worked out for Microsoft. They've still done well, but they've sold sort of half the consoles that Sony have. Their exclusives haven't been done as well. So I think in their eyes, and I think it's a smart move just to be like, right, we're done with this direct competition. What can we offer that the competition doesn't? And I think this is more interesting.
I see that. Like obviously, there's a massive like business reality to the amount of revenue that's gained from just spreading your products around. Like that obviously makes sense. But then they're out there buying Obsidian and In Exile, and it's like, okay, we're still going to go down the exclusive front. But it's like, I mean, assumedly then those Xbox quote-unquote exclusives would be available everywhere. Because another part of this that Phil Spencer's been talking about, who's head of Xbox, he's been discussing the idea of xCloud, which is they've been buying a lot into xCloud streaming, and cloud services were touted a hell of a lot at the start of this generation as the main method of content delivery. And if that's the way they're going, because his whole thing was that whatever the hell xCloud is, let's just assume that it works. You can then access Xbox games on your phone or anywhere with a constant internet connection. You can just beam the games in, because the way that they work is that you're essentially just transmitting button presses over the internet or whatever, and then they stream the game back to you, which I don't believe will ever work, but maybe. And that's the thing, if they're going forward with that, then Xbox is just available everywhere. But I don't know, like that's kind of a weird step towards the death of console gaming, because it's like, if they've seen the light and this is the way that it goes, like streaming services are the way that it goes, and Game Pass is massively financially viable for so many developers, then why doesn't everybody end up embracing that? Where, Netflix, Amazon Prime, what do we call it, other video services that I can't think of the name. Now TV is a thing. If it's just the same case where you bring up your list of apps and it's like PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, whatever, and they're all just those legacy services, then maybe that's the future of gaming. Maybe I don't want to use this as a derogatory term, but say Xbox is the Netflix. They're what they want to be the Netflix going into the next generation. All their exclusives do suck. Hey, we've had some good Netflix stuff and some all right Xbox stuff. Anyway, go on. So say they want to be like the Netflix of gaming. Yes. You still got big studios putting out theatrical releases now. You have Netflix and the big studios coexist. You have cinema and you have streaming. There's no reason that, again, this is going to sound like I'm just praising Sony, calling them the cinema of gaming. There's no reason they can't be the Sony. They can't be the cinema of gaming. Sure. And Microsoft can offer a brand new alternative, a more cutting edge alternative, trying this streaming platform. I know it might be successful for them, but I don't think everyone's going to go down
that route, simply because I'm not sure if the infrastructure is there yet. Like we said, this stuff is untested at the moment. It's going to be a good few years to see if anyone can pull it off. And I think if any of them can, Microsoft is in the best position to do it because they've already been investing in this tech for a long time. And now we're finally seeing kind of the fruits of this labor.
My test case for this is always every morning when I come in, because I go through a certain part on my train journey where the signal just dies. So if I'm in the middle of a game and it's going to die on the way in, that's not going to work. So, I mean, I think the only way they get around that is by doing the evolution of Game Pass that they have. Well, they started with being able to download games. PlayStation now changed from streaming to downloading. Maybe that's the way around it, where you're just paying for, you download a game and there's a certain like check-in every few hours or weeks or whatever, where they make sure that you haven't, I don't know, they had little check-ins at the start of this generation and everyone hated them. So that was a 24-hour one.
What's kind of fascinating to me, because I'm sure in this report as well, it mentioned that Halo Infinite was going to be one of the launch games. So if they launch Halo Infinite with these two consoles and then also spread their seed across the rest of the...
There's no good way to say that.
There's not, is there? But if you have a big hitter like Halo Infinite and you have this brand new sort of tech, that's a good place to start from. You might be able to completely mess it up like they did in 2013, but I do genuinely think that is a promising way for them to go.
I think
it's not what I want necessarily.
I think it's all in the messaging, and I think the last few generations have nearly always shown that the two biggest competitors always switch positions. Like the PlayStation 2 was stratospherically at the top of the game, and then it just fell the hell apart with the PS3, only for the PS4 to recover. And so that would kind of lay the claim that maybe Xbox is going to recover itself this gen, or maybe it's just Nintendo's time to just keep going.
Maybe.
But for now, that was such a high now. For now. But for now, that's kind of all we know. So let us know what you think down in the comments. Are you interested in the future of gaming? If it's based on streaming and if it's based on multiple SKUs for the consoles, let us know what you think. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.